Hey guys, it's Michelle with Adventure Mentality, and in today's video we're going to talk about one of my favorite ways to travel, which is cruising. I love cruising so much. I've only been on a couple, but I definitely want to go on a whole lot more because cruising is really so versatile. There are so many different ways to cruise and places to cruise, and I really just love the concept of cruising. So in today's video, I'm going to give you 7 misconceptions or myths, and we're going to break them down and give you the truths. Let's get started. So the first misconception is that cruises are for old people. There are so many different types of cruises and so many different cruise lines that cater to different audiences. So this is completely false. There are certain cruises and types of travel that do cater to older, retired, more mature audience, but cruising is really for anyone and everyone. You've got Disney, you've got Carnival, you've got Norwegian, you've got Royal Caribbean, you've got some high luxury smaller cruise ships, you've got river cruise ships, you've got expedition cruise ships. So there really are a whole lot of ways to travel, and it caters to so many different types of people. So the idea that cruises are for old people probably came from when cruising started, and cruisers were the older generation who had the money and had the time to go on these cruises. But as times have changed, so have the cruise lines. And so now we have cruise lines that cater to families, that cater to young adults and young couples. And so anybody who wants to cruise can find a cruise that fits them. I would love to help you find the perfect cruise for you. So if you're interested in cruising, please feel free to reach out, and I would definitely love to help you. So the second misconception is that cruise food is terrible. It is like mass produced. It is just a buffet, or it is just kind of restaurant food. And there are some cruises who have to mass produce food, but there are a lot of like really good chefs on these cruise ships. There are specialty restaurants, there are different types of food that you can eat. The couple cruises that I have been on, the food has been fabulous. We've done the buffets, we've done the specialty restaurants, and I honestly can't think of any time when I had a bad experience with cruise food. I know there are people who have, but I have always enjoyed the cruise food. And the perk of eating on a cruise ship is that most of the restaurants are included. There are some specialty restaurants that cost more, but for the most part, you get to try these different foods and they're all included in the price of the cruise. And on those cruise ships that cater to families with kids, you'll definitely be able to find something that your pickiest eaters will enjoy. The third misconception is that you're on a cruise, you're just sitting on a boat, there's nothing to do, you're gonna get bored. Well, that is baloney. There is so much to do on any type of cruise. Even the river cruises, they have performers that come on and perform. And when you get to the bigger cruise lines and the bigger ships, there is so much to do. You've got water slides, you've got pools. Those are just on the basic ones. On the bigger ships, you've got the surfing, you've got ice skating, you've got roller skating, you've got arcades, you've got carousels, you've got rock walls, you've got sports, you've got so many different activities. And not only that, there are different shows, Broadway style shows with amazing performers. You've got comedy shows, you've got live music. Like there are so many different activities and so much to do on a cruise. There is no way you will be bored. Not to mention activities in port and excursions. So that is just the biggest bunch of baloney ever. You are not going to be bored. And you don't have to stay super busy either. If you don't want to do all those activities, you can just relax. There are quiet areas where you can go and read a book, play a game, look out the windows. They have spas. There is so much to do on these cruises, and it doesn't have to be all high activity. It can be relaxing as well. So it has something for everyone. Also, on some of the bigger cruise lines, they have kids clubs. So when you're traveling with your kids and you want to do some adult activity, or you want to just have a nice romantic dinner without your kids, you can put your kids in the kids clubs, and they are not just babysitters. They have activities for the kids. They split it by age, so the older kids have things that appeal to them, the younger kids have things that appeal to them, and they really, really do their best to cater to everyone on the ship. So definitely look into a cruise. Don't worry about being bored. Don't worry about being overstimulated. It really is your vacation to choose. The fourth misconception is that you will get seasick. So, as someone who does get motion sickness, the bigger the boat, the less you'll feel any type of movement. And if you're also worried about movement, if you're in the middle of the ship, if you sleep in the middle of the ship, then that tends to lessen the movement as well when you're sleeping. So there are ways around it. Also, if you can take the motion sickness medicine, Dramamine, Bonine, they have those C-bands, different things to help with seasickness. On the smaller cruise ships, it might be more of an issue. On the bigger cruise ships, you don't feel it as much. River cruising, you're not hitting the waves that you're hitting in the ocean, so you don't need to worry as much about seasickness in that case. So if you have those issues, maybe steer clear of the smaller ships, maybe go with a river cruise or a bigger boat. There are ways around that. So don't use that as an excuse to not go on a cruise. Number 5 is that there are way too many people and it is too crowded. Well, it is a lot of people when you get on the bigger cruise ships. However, they do a lot of activities and they have different places where people gather. And so it honestly doesn't feel like there are like a million people just surrounding you at all times. There are places that you can go on the ships that are less crowded. And if you're worried about crowds, you really, really, really don't like crowds, there are the smaller ships and river cruising. Number 6 is that cruises are bad for the environment. Cruises do their best to do what they can by the way that they dispose of materials, the plastics that they use. They're very conscious of how they are affecting the environment. We live in a world where everything we do has an effect on the environment. And so we are trying to minimize that effect. And so the cruise lines are following suit. And they have definitely gotten better from where they were like 20, 30, 50 years ago. So it's a process and they are doing their best. And the 7th misconception is that cruising is always very expensive. So when you look at a cruise in total, the price might seem a little high, but you've got to take into account that you're paying for like all these activities on board, you're paying for all the food, you're paying for your room and board, you're paying for transportation to these different locations. And so combined, cruising is actually a very cost-effective way to travel, especially when you have a big family, because you get some of these cruise promos where kids will sail free or the 3rd and 4th guests sail free. There are lots of different ways to minimize the cost, and so that is very helpful. The longer the cruise, the more expensive. The shorter the cruise, the less expensive. Generally, the bigger cruise lines are a little more affordable, especially if you live close to an area that has a port that cruises come in and out of. You should definitely look into taking advantage of that, because that even lessens your costs so much more, because you don't have to pay to get to the port and you don't have to pay to stay, and it just makes so much sense. And you can go to places that are hard to get to, and you can visit multiple places in one trip. It really is just a fun, cost-effective way to see a lot of sights. So those are the 7 misconceptions that we're going to cover today in the video. If you have any other questions about cruising, I would love to help. You can join my group on Facebook. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm on all the social media platforms. If you're interested in cruising in the next year or so, please reach out. I would love to help you get something booked. And if you haven't already, make sure you like the video and subscribe to my channel just so you don't miss any of my other videos coming out. And yeah, we'll see you in the next video. Bye.